Hey, welcome to the Shay Speaks podcast where real talk meets inspiration and good vibes. Listen, I'll be bringing unfiltered conversations about life, growth, and everything in between. So if you're here for some empowerment and thought provoking gems, baby, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back or welcome to the Shay Speaks podcast. I want to thank you for joining me for another meaningful conversation. Today we're going to be talking about empowering Black families through homeschooling. So I started to homeschool my daughter in October of 2022. What kind of jumped off my journey to homeschooling was I was moving from my hometown to another town, and I had to unenroll my daughter from school anyway because we were going to be moving. Now, before the process took place and before I decided exactly where I was going to move to, I um, I started to research homeschooling because it was just something that kind of came on my heart at that time. So once I started researching homeschooling, I started to gain an understanding about what homeschooling was because I didn't grow up knowing anyone that was homeschooled. I didn't grow up homeschooled. I went to public school. All throughout my years, I went to college as well. So homeschooling was a completely new concept for me. I had no idea of what it entailed or like how to do it or what you needed to do in order to homeschool your child in the state of Texas, which is where I'm from and where I live. So there was a little bit of shift in what was happening with my daughter, which kind of made me want to research homeschooling. So when she started out her first grade year, she had a Black teacher, and every single day her teacher would put a smiley face in her folder, and when I would pick her up, her teacher would tell me how helpful she was, how much of a leader she was, how much she was willing to help, and how she was just at the forefront of all of her peers, like a mother goose, basically. She always wanted to help. She was always helping others, as well as the teacher. Something happened where that teacher no longer showed up. So either she got fired or she quit. And my child had a couple of temporary teachers, and then she got assigned a teacher. Her classroom got assigned a teacher. And this teacher was palm colored. And initially, there was no issues. I was like, okay, finally she's got a permanent teacher. But I started to look at her folder that she was bringing home every day. And the first 2 weeks out of that month, she had smiley faces, nice little pleasant notes all across the board. And then magically, now all of a sudden, every single day, she has a sad face. It was to the point to where I wrote a note on the back of it because they had a little space where parents could communicate with the teacher. And I asked them, does my child do anything satisfactory throughout the day for you to conclude her whole day to a sad face? It was such a big deal that I met with the principal and they could see my vantage point. They could see the conflict of why was she so great with this one teacher and now all of a sudden she is not and she's bad and she doesn't listen, which is weird because, you know, I know my child and I know all kids are a little bit different when they're around different adults, but for the most part, I know that my child is going to listen. So it was just weird for me, and I was really getting offended because I couldn't understand what the direct contrast in her having a Black teacher and then from her having a palm colored teacher who gave her a sad face every single day. It was to the point to where I actually, when I dropped her off in the morning, that teacher was working the parking lot, helping the kids get in and out of the car. And I asked her, what is the issue? Very respectfully, but I asked her, what's the issue? How come my child is so unsatisfactory every single day that you can't even think of one positive thing to say about my child? And at that point, I knew my child was experiencing microaggression. And at that point, the research that I had done months prior, it made sense. It made sense as to why I was looking into homeschool. Because again, I was getting ready to move from my hometown to a different city, and it just made me more comfortable to have her at home because I don't know anything about the city that I'm moving to. I just know I want to move there, right? So I we're going to jump into the logistics of what you have to do to start homeschooling your child, but that's pretty much what it was. It was more of a spiritual thing. I didn't like my child coming home every day and she having anxiety. Every day I would ask her, "What'd you learn in school today?" And she'd be like, I don't know. I went to lunch. We went outside to play." She wasn't retaining any of the information. They started trying to say that she had behavioral issues, which it wasn't lining up with what I know about my daughter. I really chose, outside of the experience of the complete contrast of her getting smiley faces every day and being an amazing helper, to her getting a sad face every day and being disobedient. The only difference was the color of her teacher, which I didn't really look at it as microaggression initially. But once I started to sit down and just look at everything for what it was, I realized my baby was experiencing microaggression. So outside of that, I chose to homeschool my daughter because I really wanted to make my life simpler as a single mom. As a single mom, you know that we've got to get everything done within a day's time and our job is never done. So for me, it was always a hassle to get up, take her to school. I would have to either arrange after school daycare because I'm still working. I would have to arrange somebody to pick her up or drop her off in the mornings because my job wouldn't allow me to um, pick her up because I was still working. So the very first thing that happened in my life was that I started to work from home. So once I started to work from home, that's when I started to research the topic. That's when the drastic change happened with her teacher. And then I just realized that having her at home would be so much simpler because I can get up and get my day started. She can get up and get her day started. We can slow our mornings down. We're not worried about the commute. We're not worried about waking her up, rushing her around. It's simple. It's a very simple process as far as the commuting and all of that goes when you homeschool. And as a Black homeschooling mom, this experience has shown me firsthand how empowering and liberating it can be to make your own schedule for your child. And it's empowered me so much. That's the main reason why I'm now a full-time podcast host, because the freedom that my daughter has is something that I strive to have. We do have a schedule. We follow a schedule. She has a routine. But at the same time, her days look different every day. She doesn't have a 7 to 8 hour window carved out of her day. Her day is based on her workload for the day, what she's learning, if she has tests. Some days she may finish her school day in 2.5 hours. Some days it might take her 6 hours. But it's not repetitive. She doesn't do busy work. She does work directly related to the curriculum that she is learning, and that is it. We don't spend a whole lot of time trying to keep her busy because we all know kids learn so fast, right? Like kids seriously do not need 7 to 8 hours a day to learn the material. Their brains are developing so rapidly, they don't need all day to learn something. And what I noticed is that a lot of times kids with behavioral issues, a lot of times they're just bored or they're understimulated or they're overstimulated. So it's been liberating because I have the ability to make her schedule. She has a routine and we stick to it. And the beauty about it is if that is not working, we change it. We don't have to stick to something that's not working or something that is inducing anxiety within her. We don't have to stick to that. We change it and we make it fit for her, which is very, very liberating. And again, that is at the forefront of the reason why I am now hosting a podcast, because I want to be like my child, right? Like she gets to, um, once she gets her work done, it's done. She doesn't have to do busy work. And we really kind of do that when we work, right? When we work for someone, we pretty much do busy work. They make sure we stay busy all day. Sometimes you can be at work and your job was done hours ago, but you still have to work because you want that whole paycheck for the 8 hours or however many hours you work per day. So it is honestly very, very empowering and very liberating, and it gives me a glimpse of what exiting the rat race really looks like. You know what I mean? Like, it really does. So outside of having control of her schedule, I'm also in control of what she's learning, what she is eating. I'm helping her regulate her emotions throughout the day, teaching her valuable life skills in the moment. Everything is a teachable moment. Every single thing is a teachable moment. And that is something that I love. Most importantly, what she's eating. At the schools, they don't really feed them good, healthy, nutritious food. And sometimes kids are actually embarrassed to eat their packed lunches because their peers are not doing it. So the peer pressure is not there. She's able to freely think about her lessons, about what she is doing as an individual, and she doesn't have the constant comparison of, what are my peers doing? What are my peers wearing? Oh, she came to school, she got her hair done, or she had on these shoes that I really like. All of that is eliminated because she is the only student in this classroom, and she is compared to no one in this classroom. And that is a really beautiful and powerful thing. And let's be honest, public and private schools oftentimes disproportionately discipline Black children and fail to recognize their intellect, creative potential, and homeschool really allows them to flourish without limitation or systemic biases. My daughter is very creative. Her imagination runs wild, as most kids do. But here's the thing: school, systemically, is designed to make good employees. That's what it's there for, right? It's stretching out the amount of work throughout the day, giving them busy work, and it's creating them for the workforce. It's getting them used to the microaggression, the unfairness, the comparison to others. It's getting them ready for that. It's training them. And outside of that, it little by little takes away their creativity. It takes away their individualization. They have to wear uniforms at certain schools. They want everybody walking around looking the same. Because if this kid's got on designer and this kid doesn't, that's a problem. The kid thinks that they're not worthy because their mom is not buying them $500 designer shoes. Instead, maybe they have on some from Walmart or something like that. So it's really killing their creativity and also killing their confidence in a way, because kids are really mean. Kids are really mean. And a real reason why more Black families should choose to homeschool, because it reduces the exposure to racism, microaggression, like we talked about earlier, stereotypes that impact Black children's mental health and self-esteem. We already know that in our community, we really don't. Now we're kind of on the up and up. I'm not going to lie. We're on the up and up in the Black community with mental health. But historically, we did not take our mental health serious. And it was because we didn't know how. And we didn't know where it stemmed from. It stemmed from school, right? Mental health and not feeling good mentally, or being overly anxious about something and just having to deal with it the way somebody else is teaching you how to deal with it. Not understanding that Black kids, the way that they think, the way that they handle things is different. So they're trying to suppress, and that's why a lot of times you get kids misbehaving, skipping school, not listening to their teachers, not doing their homework and things of that nature. It's because they have all these pent up emotions that they don't know how to express. Maybe their teacher secretly doesn't like them. Maybe they're facing microaggression with this one teacher that they can't get along with. And whenever you talk to the teacher tells you, I don't know what's going on with so and so. Like, they just don't listen, not understanding that it's really the teacher. But putting your kids' education in the hands of your oppressors is really kind of you're kind of gambling with your child's future. And again, don't get me wrong, my child went to kindergarten and half of first grade. She went to pre-K, kindergarten, half of first grade. Initially, when I pulled her out of school, it was literally just because it was simple for me. But then it became real deep. It became a spiritual thing for me because I know for a fact that I'm setting my child up to be her most free thinking, her most creative. And I'm not killing that innocence within her. I'm not subjecting her to the microaggression that occurs in school. Um, and that is really something that I never thought about. I never knew that I was setting her up for these things. I was just moving in a way that felt organic to me. And that's how we ended up on our homeschooling journey. Homeschooling amongst Black families have grown significantly in recent years. In 2020, the number of Black homeschool students increased by fivefold. So there's a lot of people either thinking about it or just jumping off the porch and doing it because they realize the impact that teaching your child at home could have on not only the present moment, but the future. And that's really what we're looking towards. Because let's be honest, your child is going to be an adult longer than they're going to be a kid. So their whole entire life, you're preparing them for adulthood. Let's be real, you're not going to be here forever with your children. So you're preparing them for their real adult life. And after you're no longer here to sit there and hold their hand, you're seriously preparing them to be a free thinker, to be creative, to really create that generational wealth. Because you may be a first generation millionaire, because I'm going to be a first generation millionaire. But in order for the generational wealth to continue, your legacy has to continue to carry that on. And I would much rather my child learn what I learned at the age of 25. She can learn that now at age 8. She can learn about being an entrepreneur and the importance of it and knowing that you got to have multiple streams of income. There's not going to be this miracle job that's going to just jump out and make your life great and amazing. You have to walk in your purpose. And through private schools, they're not walking in a purpose. They are walking on a blueprint that was made to create them to be a good employee. We're not looking to be a good employee. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with having a job. I have a W-2 job as of now. This is my last year working as an employee. This is my last year working for a company, period. And that's stamped because I'm putting myself in a position to push forward in a way that I never have, that I don't know how. But guess what? I'm learning new things. I'm just putting myself out there. And it's really stemmed from me following what my heart needs and not what my mind wants. Homeschooling provides a platform to teach your child critical thinking, community awareness, social justice, and really most importantly, it fosters close family bonds and allows for a deeper connection. I spend all 24 hours with my baby every single day. I'm the first thing she sees, I'm the last person she sees every single day. And don't get me wrong, there was a learning curve in there where I had to learn how to handle me better so that I could be a good example for her. And I had to learn how to work on my mental health and create mental wellness within myself, because mental health doesn't mean you're schizophrenic and you're walking around with two left shoes on. That's not what that means. That means that you have anxiety. That means that you might go through seasons of depression. That means that you're just generally unhappy with yourself. And so homeschooling my daughter, more than anything, I have to put myself first. A lot of times people say, oh, I put my kids first. That's cute, but you need to put yourself first. How can you put someone before yourself? Even your kids. That's not the way it works. You have to take care of you first because you can't pour from an empty cup. You feel what I'm saying? So listen, homeschooling has really put me in the position to put me first mentally, how to cut bonds and ties with people, places, and things that no longer serve me. It's taught me that. And it's taught me that I am better off. I'm happier when I do those things. Because we all know that Black history is underrepresented in curriculum in public and private sector schools. We know that. unequal access to quality education, right? We know that. We already know that to be true. And with homeschooling, you're able to create a curriculum that reflects Black culture and history, protecting your child's mental health and self esteem. Because kids are not just kids, they are kids, but obviously they're going to be an adult longer than they'll be a kid. So if as a kid, that's where your mental health problem started at, that's going to be rooted in you. That's trauma. And then you're going to have to overcome that. And then finally, now you can start to flourish. We don't have to live like that. Take control. Take your control back. And really strengthening that family bond. I know some people be so excited when their kids go to school. Don't get me wrong, I used to be the same way. When she went to school, I was excited. It was an exciting thing for me. But then I started to realize, number one, people just walk into schools with guns, all type of stuff, hurting our babies every single day. We just gonna send them to a place where, number one, they're experiencing microaggression. They get low self-esteem. They get depressed. How many times have you heard of kids taking their lives because of a bully, or because a boy broke up with them, or because a girl broke up with them? How many times have you heard those stories? Even if you've only heard one story, that's one too many. That is one too many. And it has a lot to do with the environment that they spend a good portion of their day in. So kids hone in on things. They don't have the ability to see the future the way we can. So as a kid, they might have got broken up with, or maybe a certain friend isn't talking to them anymore. That's their whole world. That is their whole life. They think that it's never going to get better. They don't understand the concept of people come and go. They don't get that because they haven't seen it. So they get so caught up and wrapped up in what's going on at school, because that is a big, huge part and chunk of their day and chunk of their life, that sometimes it's just overwhelming. How many times have you heard parents say, "Oh, he or she was a happy kid. I don't know how this happened." And unfortunately, it's because they're not as in touch with their kid as they think that they are. And I'm not saying that in a way to be disrespectful, but ultimately that's what it is. Kids learn how to camouflage their feelings just like we do. But if you're around your kid all day long, they really can't camouflage a whole lot from you unless you're just not paying attention. You just don't want to see it. And that's on you. Homeschooling allows us to teach our children a truthful and inclusive history that highlights Black excellence. Black children don't know how amazing Black people are. They learn that later in life. Why do they have to learn it later in life when we can implement that right now? We can implement it right now. We can teach them every day Black excellence. We can show them every day Black excellence. It doesn't have to be something that they learn later on in life. Sometimes when my child and I we talk facts about life and what's going on, it's like it enrages her a little bit, because she's confused as to why things are the way they are with Black people, or with the government, with the world, with society. When we talk about those things, I can tell her, "Girl, calm down." Calm down. Because they don't get the truth about true Black history, and how amazing we are, and how this country was built off of our backs, and the true history of Black people. They don't learn it in schools. Of course, we have MLK Day. They get a day out, but they're not really learning Black history. Black history is not only in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He is a pillar of Black history. But there are so many other Black inventors, creators that have created things that we use to this day every single day. And I think a lot of times schools honor talking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. a lot more because he has a whole day dedicated to it. But that's not the full picture of who we are as a people. There's a lot more to that. There's a lot that came before Dr. MLK and a lot that came after, and there's a lot to come. And so you get to teach that in real time. You get to allocate time to teach your kid about their history. We don't want to hear about no pilgrims. We don't want to hear about no Boston Tea Party. Listen, they don't have nothing to do with us for real. Like, that's just a place and time where palm colored people have to insert themselves into history. You're really able to customize the learning experience. When I first started homeschooling my daughter, I was teaching her from like different books, and we allocated amount of time, and we had different worksheets, and we just did it like that. And what I learned is that wasn't really conducive to us because I'm still working a full-time job. So I had to find something that worked good with her learning style, that because I'm working full time, something that she can kind of maneuver a lot of it on her own. And if there's something that she's not quite understanding, she can move on to something else. And then we can sit down together and go through the things that's not making sense to her. So I figured out that I needed a little bit more support. And I'm like, how do I do this? So there are tons of programs out there, and a lot of them will give you a free trial. We did about 6 different programs with a free trial. We finally found the one that we liked. There's a lot of free ones and there's a lot of paid ones. The free ones are cool, but the paid one that we now use, Chef's Kiss, because you can pick the classes that you want your child to take. Of course, they have to take a grade level appropriate courses, but you can pick the extracurricular classes you want them to take. It's up to you. They don't have to just take it because they need the credit. There's a wide variety of things that you can choose from that allows your kid to have the freedom of having the extracurricular, something that they actually like. And I really love that about the program that we're using currently. And homeschooling allows you to know that your child has a safe and supportive environment. You know what I mean? They're safe. You're not worried about somebody running up in there with AK-47, or you're not worried about the microaggression, you're not worried about the racism, because it's you one-on-one with your kid. It's just you. You're fostering a lifelong relationship with your child. It's not just about the learning and the teaching part. It's about the relationship that you get to have with your kid, because you're learning your child. You're learning who they are. They're a reflection of you, but they are their own individual person. So when you're in the position to be the teacher, the tutor, the nurse, the lunch lady, the principal, and everything in between, you're really able to build a relationship or build a bond with your child that's gonna last you a lifetime and beyond. Your child will never forget the time that you took out with them. Your child will never forget how mom was there every single mom or dad or both was there every single step of the way through school. They'll never forget that. That is a lifelong bond that you're creating with your child. Now, let's just kind of talk about some of the things that might have popped up in your head if you've ever thought about homeschooling or have researched it. Now, there could be a certain fear associated with your child going to public or private school to you homeschooling. Number one, you could be fearful that you're not qualified to teach. That could be a fear, right? Number two, you might be concerned that your child won't be socialized, or, they might lack social skills because they're not around other kids. That might be something that you fear as well. Financial and time constraints. So you might be like, how in the heck am I going to homeschool my kid if I work 10 hours a day doing, I don't know, I work in a doctor's office, or I don't work from home. Like, how am I going to homeschool my child? Like, that doesn't work for me because I have to go to work and they have to go to school so that I can make money to spend to have to go back to work, right? Because that's essentially what we do. As far as feeling unqualified to teach, number one, there are community support groups. You can join a homeschool group, a co-op, online communities. You can get different resources from online communities as well as encouragement. There's a Facebook group for everything. You can get in a Facebook group. You can join a co-op, which is a co-op is other families that homeschool that live in your area, and maybe they plan uh, play dates for the kids, or they get together and have events for the kids. So it's like you're homeschooling, but they still have the environment to be able to come together with other kids. And you really have to leverage your online resources. You have to do your research. You have to be confident in your decision. I remember when I took my child out of school. So in the state of Texas, you have to send a letter of intent via certified mail. So there are different templates that you can use to make sure that you get all the right verbiage in there. But essentially, it's a letter that has your name, your address, your intentions, which is to homeschool, where you're going to be homeschooling, a few more other things that you have to put on a letter of intent. But those are the basics. Roll it up, take it to the post office, send it certified mail so that there would be confirmation that somebody actually received it. Take them out of school, and you're done. I remember sending that letter of intent. It was probably like a week after I had the meeting with the principal. They called me and said, "Hey, Shay, we got your letter of intent to homeschool. Are you sure that you want to homeschool her? I know we hit a rough patch, but are you sure?" And then her teacher called me and she was like, "Oh, I'm just really sad that you feel like you have to homeschool her." I told her, "Ma'am, don't be sad. This is an empowering decision for me. I'm sad for you that you think that it's sad that I want to take my child's education into my hands." They will not understand your plan or your vision, but it's not up to them to understand. They have your kid maybe 1 year or 2 years, or maybe they see them every year while they're at that school. That has nothing to do with where you see their future and where they're headed and where they're going. So you have to make that decision, stand firm on it. They're going to question you. "Oh, are you sure?" Positive. I told them that. They said, "Okay." They wish me well. "Oh, you can always enroll her back in school if you need to." No, thank you. I'm good. You also might worry about time management. Listen, homeschooling doesn't have to follow a 9 to 5 schedule. Being flexible is one of the greatest advantages of homeschooling. My daughter, she sleeps until about 9:30, and then she gets up, she has her breakfast, she starts homeschool around 10. And sometimes it can take her 2 hours, sometimes it can take her 6 hours. It depends on what she's learning, if she has tests, midterms. It just depends on what her workload is like that day. But that's the beauty of it. She's 8 years old. She's still growing. She needs to get her sleep. She needs sleep more than she needs to be trying to learn something bright and early in the morning. It's allowed me to see, okay, we have a routine. She doesn't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. For your kid, that might work, and that's the beauty of it. You might realize, hey, my kid's an early riser. I can have my kid up by 6, doing homeschool by 6:30 or 7, and they're done by noon, and that works for us. That is the beauty of it. It's not a cookie cutter thing. It's you doing truly what works for your child, and there's no judgment in that. Some people teach their kids at night because that's what works for them and their family. Their family, they're night owls. They're up late. So maybe they start homeschool at 6 p.m. Maybe they started at 7. Whatever works for them. The kids are getting their education. It's effective and it's more manageable than I thought it would be. I didn't really know what to expect because I didn't have any friends that homeschooled or anything like that. So I was really just kind of jumping off the porch doing my own thing. And people were truly inspired by my decision, but they were still like, how do you manage it? How do you do that? And I seen what didn't work. And so I changed it to what does work. And maybe next year, 9:30 is too late. Maybe she's waking up earlier now. Maybe she wakes up at 8. She can have breakfast by 8:30 and starting by 9. I don't know. As of right now, her waking up at about 9:30 each morning. Sometimes she wakes up before. And guess what? When she wakes up before, and even when she wakes up at 9:30, she gets to come cuddle up with me. She gets to snuggle up with me. Our mornings are slow. We're taking it easy in the mornings. I'm not rushing her around, not yelling, not screaming. My mom used to wake me up. I would get dressed and go fall asleep in the bathroom, like fully dressed, sitting on the toilet, not even using the bathroom, literally just sitting there, taking a nap because I'm so tired. Because maybe I stayed up late and I didn't really go to bed when I should have. Or maybe I did and I was just hitting a growth spurt and I was tired and I needed the extra rest, but I can't because I'm on a schedule that says I have to be at school at 7:50 or 8:10 or 8:35. And I got to be there or my mom's going to get in trouble, right? So there's always a lot of pressure for our kids to go to school because there's legal consequences tied to it. You know, your kid could have you in court, or your kid could be held back, or, you know, they can't attend certain events because they're not up to par where they need to be with their attendance or academics or whatever. So, whatever state you live in, you have to research and see what the requirements are. So, in the state of Texas, the only thing that's required is a letter of intent to let them know who you're homeschooling, where you're homeschooling them, your intent, and when you plan to start homeschooling them. It's pretty much it. That's all you have to do. And once you do that, of course, keep a copy of it. Keep a copy of your certified letter. Um, but there's really not a whole lot that you have to do to withdraw your kid from school. You just have to do it. Draft up the letter, send it certified mail, and you're good to go. The most important thing that you want to do if you're thinking about starting a homeschool journey, you want to define your goals. What do you want your child to gain from homeschooling? This will help you guide your approach. What you would want your schedule to look like. You basically just make a rough draft of everything that could be a possibility, positive or negative, and then you just kind of work through it. That will help you define your goals and kind of get your brain going to see if this works or if this doesn't work. You can try it out. If it don't work, the beauty about it, you can chuck that plan in the trash and you can draft up another one. You can join co-ops. You can join those Facebook groups like we talked about, and you can see what other people are doing. You can take a little bit of that and apply it, like, that might not work for my kid, or oh, my kid might really like that. That is the most beautiful thing about homeschooling is that we're not stuck doing just one thing. If it don't work, it don't work. We change. And like I mentioned before, as far as curriculum goes, they have the ready-made curriculum that you can use for the basics. I wanted my daughter to have a curriculum that she is on the same level, if not one step above her peers that are in public and private schools. I want to make sure that she is learning at the rate, the level, and the pace as the kids that are in school, but in a way that is digestible and being able to incorporate the things that I want to incorporate to make sure that she's getting a full picture of learning, not just what the school wants her to learn or not just doing busy work for 2 periods. No, we're incorporating everything we need in order for our child to grow up and have a well-rounded education. So the most important thing about setting your schedule once you create it is about being consistent and setting expectations with your child. Your child is only going to be as consistent as you are. So if you tell your child, okay, you know, you've decided that you're going to start homeschool, you've drafted up your letter of intent, you sent it off, you've taken your child out of school. Once you set the schedule, you have to be consistent. So if you tell your child, we're going to start homeschool every day at 9 a.m. They wake up at 8 o'clock, they have breakfast, you know, you do whatever you do to start your morning. They do their hygiene, You got to do that every day. You can't let them one day wake up at 10 a.m. and say, all right, we're going to do it at 10 and we're not going to do it today. We're going to do it at 12. You have to set a schedule and you have to be consistent. Because if you're not, your kid's not going to take it serious. They're going to think that whenever they don't feel like it, they don't have to. So homeschooling your child doesn't mean, oh, we're not going to follow any rules. That might be true. You're not going to follow other people's rules, but you're going to follow your rules and you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And you're going to be consistent so that your child can be consistent and they can have that structure, because that is important for child development, is to have structure, right? So you cannot eliminate that part. But the beauty about it is you can find your own rhythm and your own pattern. It doesn't have to be the pattern of someone else. It's so beautiful. And the most important thing that I've learned is you really have to learn your child's learning style. And like I've said before, it is okay to switch it up. In fact, you will switch it up. It'll switch up because the more that they gain the confidence from learning at home, you'll need to switch it up. Things will need to be different. So listen, you really have to unlearn everything you know about school and teaching kids. You got to learn to control your emotions. I'm going to say this again. You have to unlearn everything you know about school and teaching kids. You have to learn how to control your emotions. Because there's nothing worse than you trying to homeschool a kid and you flipping your lid because they're not doing what you want them to do with that second, or they're not understanding it the way you think they should. Like, there's this thing that goes around, and all Black people know, if Johnny had 3 apples and he ate one, how many does he have left? And your kids say 6, and you're mad because their brain ain't working right. Like, control yourself. And you have to perhaps reword the question, perhaps put that question at the end, give them something that you know that they can get the answer right to build their confidence, and then we go back to that. You don't have to beat a dead horse with the kid. If the kid's not understanding it, they could be overstimulated, their brain could be tired. Maybe you didn't feed them a nutritious breakfast and they just ate a big bowl of cereal and now they can't focus because their brain's going haywire. So a nutritious breakfast is definitely important, because that has a lot to do with how your kids perform when they're learning at school or even at home. I noticed that when she eats cereal for breakfast, it's going to be a weird day because she's starting the day out with sugar, right? But I know when she starts with the nutritious breakfast, I know she's going to have a great day because we started that day out with some top nutrition. You have to be mindful of what your kid is eating, because you're mad at them because they can't focus, but they ate a bunch of crap for breakfast. You have to start putting all of those things together because there is a direct correlation to that. You have to cultivate a healthy environment by modeling emotional regulation. So you have to show them what emotional regulation looks like. That doesn't mean you're not going to get frustrated. That doesn't mean that you're going to be like all love and light. That's not what this is. This is realistic life. And when emotions run high, walk away. Pause, reset, come back. You have to teach them that that is okay by showing them, if you're getting frustrated with a concept that they're trying to learn or something like that, pause, reset, walk away, come back, reapproach it from a different angle. Okay? Set realistic expectations. It's a journey. Every single day will not be perfect. It can't. It's a journey. Every day will be different. It won't be perfect. Some days they'll get frustrated. Some days they'll be happy with what they learned. And some days they're like, ugh, I don't want to learn anything else today. Me and my baby have a saying, happy learning. Instead of saying, have a great day at school, we say happy learning. Because not only do I want you to learn, I want you to be happy that you have the ability to learn, that you can learn. In the morning times, a lot of days, we will play some inspirational kids music some learning music to get her going, waking up, um, cultivate her environment, have them a setup where they can learn every day, where they can go and sit and have their time to learn and just really their personal space. This is their school space that they go to, and they have all the things that they need there. You have to be transparent with your children. And if your kid is having any setbacks, you have to view that as an opportunity to grow and learn more about your child. Instead of being like, oh, they didn't understand this concept. Use it as a tool to reposition yourself and learn more about your kid, what they may need or may not need. That's the opportunity for growth right there. So if you're worried that your child won't be socialized, I wouldn't worry about that. Number one, not only can you join a homeschool co-op, there are tons of things that you can introduce your kid to: different sports, instrument playing, different art classes. But what you have to understand about kids is kids will be kids. They will play and socialize with kids. That's not the true issue. You're teaching them life skills. They're not going to be communicating with kids for the rest of their life. When anybody meets my child and they talk to her, which you guys will get to meet her in just a moment, but when they meet her and they talk to her, she's very well spoken. It's because she's having a conversation with Shay Speaks all day, her mother. Not because she's talking to kids. Kids don't provide the insight. Don't get me wrong. It's healthy for your kids to have interactions with other kids. But they don't need that to be a well-rounded individual. You can socialize when you go to college. You can socialize in your extracurricular activity. I love being able to teach my child without the influence of other kids. The most beautiful thing I've ever done. I'm not worried about what Sarah doing at school. We're not worried about any of those things. We're worried about education, creating lasting memories between her and I. Because the one thing that's for sure is that I'm her mother. And any friends that she acquires along the way are just extras in her life. I am the person in her life that is a constant, even beyond life, into death. I will still be her mother, right? One day your child is friends with Sally Sue, and the next day she don't like her no more. That is not what childhood experience should be about. Don't get me wrong, kids deserve to have friends, but there's ways around that. You don't really need school to socialize your kid. And to be honest, I don't really want my kids socializing with a lot of y'all kids, because kids will expose your kids to more things than they will be exposed to anyway. Kids are raised differently in different households. And when their mind is so impressionable, they don't need to be socializing too many kids for too long. It needs to be a controlled environment where I can be right there looking and seeing what's going on. She'll socialize in her extracurricular activities. But most importantly, she'll socialize when she's able to emotionally handle the change of people, places, and things. Right now, she's in a fragile state mentally, which all kids are. And me being able to foster a positive environment will allow her to maintain that throughout her life. And when adversity comes, she'll know how to handle herself. Because this is what this is about. This is a self-fulfillment journey. I don't want her to be suppressed. I don't want her to be worried about things that don't matter outside of herself. I want her to always be centered in herself. Being self-centered gets a bad rap. I don't care. I want my child to be self-centered, not in a negative way. She has compassion for others and animals and things like that. But I want her to know that she has to always put herself first. And she's learning that. And she's learning how to take care of her mental and emotional health right now. It's not going to be something that she has to circle back to and has to go through a whole healing phase of learning how to handle her mental health. Don't get me wrong. Everybody's going to have a little bit of trauma, but it ain't going to be the same thing that I went through. It ain't going to be that. It's going to be something else that she's going to have to heal and deal with. And guess what? She'll know how. she'll know how. Why? Because her and I have fostered and cultivated an environment where she can know how she feels and what she's feeling versus suppressing it because she's got to keep going. Celebrate the wins, big or small. The program that my child uses, she gets a sticker every time she completes a daily goal. And she's like, Mom, I got my sticker every time. And we celebrate. I'm like, hey, good job, baby, every time. Because that makes her, number one, feel accomplished. She can see how many things she's got to do. She can do them in whatever order she wants to. She can pick which class she wants to start with, pick which class she wants to end with, but every single day she meets her daily goal. Every day. Every single day. There's not a day that goes by that she doesn't meet it. The only way that she doesn't is if I only plan for her to do school for a couple of, like today. She had a photo shoot, and she didn't complete all of her daily goals, and I knew that she wasn't, because I knew that I had a photo shoot planned for her, and it doesn't matter. She can finish it tomorrow. She'll be able to pick up exactly where she left off today, tomorrow. We went out and we enjoyed, and we had an amazing time at her photo shoot. So when it comes back to the socialization thing, listen, by creating healthy interactions, there is evidence that homeschool children can and will be well socialized. And oftentimes they're going to thrive because, again, they've learned how to converse with adults. And most of the time, if you're homeschooling your kid, you're on the journey too, because it puts you on a journey. It's making you zero in on what you got going on and review things. Homeschooling is more than education. It is an opportunity to empower and uplift our families for generations to come. If you're considering homeschooling, take one step this week, whether that's researching your laws, connecting with some support groups. Just take one step to see, what would it look like for me and my family if I want to home? If you currently work for a company, look at some work from home jobs. See where you would want to place yourself until you're able to be a full-time entrepreneur. Because if you're creating generational wealth, you're going to have to be an entrepreneur to some degree. Even if you work a job, you're still going to have to be an entrepreneur. You're not going to create generational wealth by working for somebody else. It don't work like that. Can you make a pretty penny? Yeah, you can. But as long as you're exchanging dollars for hours, you're not creating generational wealth. You can exchange your dollars for hours and then clock in full time as an entrepreneur and give your entrepreneurial goals the same amount of energy as you give in that company. So now you're working 3 full time jobs. Your W-2 job, your entrepreneurial job, and your homeschooling job. And you got to get to it. And once you become a full time entrepreneur in a field that you love, it's not going to feel like work, even though it will be. And it will be lucrative because you'll be passionate. And that's why you hear me in your speakers and see me on your screen. Because I'm here fully passionate. Because I know what life can look like. Being a full-time entrepreneur, being able to travel the world with my kid because I'm not worried about a school or a job. We're going there. We're taking it there this year. It's time. You are here to break generational curses, ties, and bonds. You got the key, and it's in here. Unleash it. It's time. It starts with you. It starts with you. So on this next segment, I'm going to have my daughter come in. I'm going to ask her a few questions, and we're going to get to know her a little bit just to see how she feels about homeschool, right? See kind of what her take on it is, and because I've given you all of why I think it's a great thing and what to look for, but let's hear from the person that's actually doing it. She's the one who has to go through the routine. She's the one who had the drastic change within her life. Don't get me wrong, it's a big change for me too. But she's living it. This is her life. So We're gonna bring her in. We're gonna bring her in, and we're gonna see how she feels about it. All right. We have our very first and our very special guest here today. So, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Royalty. My favorite color is pink and purple, and I'm 8 years old.
All right. And tell us a little bit of what you like to do in your free time.
Um, I mostly like watching TV.
You like watching TV, and what else do you like doing? Like, what creative things do you like to do?
I like to draw, and I also like to make creative stuff, like, for example, a crown.
Yes, you made a crown today because you had a photo shoot where you wore a crown in the photo shoot, and when you got home, you was like, let me see if I can recreate this my own little special way. All right. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions here about our topic. So today we were talking about empowering Black families to homeschool and what that has looked like for our family. So I've kind of already talked to the parents about like the parent stuff and kind of like what they would have to do. So I'm going to ask you a few questions just to get your perspective on it and see how you feel, right? Because this is your life and we want to see how you feel about things, right? Okay. So, what's your favorite part about being homeschooled?
Probably the food.
The food? And when you say that, what do you mean?
I mean, like the lunches, the breakfasts, and the dinner.
So what's the difference about homeschool food versus food at school?
I just don't like it. It just kind of sucks.
Can you be a little bit more descriptive about what you mean? Like it kind of sucks. What sucks about it?
It just feels nicer at home. It just feels like the food is actually made with love instead of just like, yeah, put something there, yeah, put something there.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So, how do you feel about learning at home instead of going to regular school?
First of all, I'm the coolest kid in school.
Period.
And I get to have alone time. I don't have to be rushed. I can take my time. I have to hear kids be like talking and stuff like that. And exams, I don't have to be like.
So you don't get that pressure of like feeling anxious whenever you're taking an exam, and then you don't have to worry about what the other kids are saying and what they're doing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And teachers kind of overrun me. It's like they just like I'll cut off your playtime to like
Miss anything that you don't get to hear in the mic, because I'm gonna ask you that question. So, what is it about the teachers that were kind of that you don't prefer?
They won't be breathing on my back. You're gonna they're like I'm gonna cut off your playtime to like 1 minute or something.
Okay. So what you're saying is that whenever you were taking too long, they would kind of pressure you to hurry up because who doesn't want to go outside and play, right? So you would feel like you would have to hurry up and get your work done, unless you weren't going to be able to go outside and play. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So what's one thing that you've recently learned that made you feel really proud?
Division.
Okay, that's cool. I love that for you. I really do. And what grade are you in?
Third.
Okay, girl. So I have one final question for you. What's one thing you'd like to tell other kids who might be nervous about starting homeschool?
It might be a little bit scary that you're alone at home. If you have any family members, like anyone that's there, can like make you feel safe. It won't be easy doing it like in the house. You're gonna have to get used to it. You might still have to wake up early, but me, I don't really have to. But I have alarm. I still have to get up.
So you still get up on your routine, but it's just not like super early. So when you wake up, do you still feel tired in the morning, or how do you feel when you wake up in the morning?
Sometimes I might feel a tiny bit tired, but like more through the day, I'm gonna feel energized, want to do work. I'm gonna just want to do work.
Gotcha. Okay. So is there anything that you would like to add outside of the questions that I've asked you? Is there anything that you would like to add that you feel like will be valuable for others to know?
Never give up.
Never give up. Spoken like a true queen. Listen, I want to thank you for tuning into the Shay Speaks podcast. If you love this episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a new drop. And hey, don't keep this to yourself now. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep speaking your truth. Shay Speaks, signing out.